What the heck, Tekton? Already, as you can see, this video is going to be different than usual. It's just going to be me ranting and rambling about nonsense. And that's why my hat is on properly. This whole debacle between Tekton speakers or I don't know what their name, Tekton Design and a bunch of other YouTubers, namely Aaron's Audio Corner. First off, full shout out to Aaron. I sent Aaron a super thanks on his last video. I also shout out my community page. Aaron, you are awesome. I learn a lot from you. I really do. I learn a heck of a lot. The interpretation that you have by looking at measurements is really cool. Does it mean that I'm going to agree with everything that you say? No, but does it matter? Because I'm just a buffoon who can't even get his mic preamp to work with his camera half the time. Do you really think that I'm going to be debating measurements?
Fuck no!
I will not be. So yeah, shout out to Aaron, because Aaron, the way you do it, I personally think that you are the next Top Gun as far as the hi-fi tubers of the world. I think you've only scratched the surface. I know this is not your full-time job, and I know you don't plan to make it your full-time job. I don't know, man. This recent episode has gotten, I think, a lot of us thinking. I'm not alone in this. So from what I'm seeing following Tekton's reaction to Aaron's videos, yeah, it's got me thinking. I think that all these big audio companies, and I mean bigger than us individual YouTubers sitting in our mom's basements trying to make videos. Yeah, big companies, ones that earn a living, can afford to drive multiple sports cars and afford to provide a living to many individuals. It's awesome. We need you guys. The world needs you guys. But I think that in today's world, social media experts, aka online publicists, might be a role that some of these companies might want to look into. Just to help advise on proper course of actions whenever there's, a debacle online, or an emotional response happens based on a, professional defensive measure that needs to be made because maybe they think they're being defamed or something along those lines. At least for the first step, consult a publicist or social media expert, something before lawyers, I would think. From the most powerful mob to have ever been created on the planet. That mob is the one that is all around us, and that whether we like it or not, we are all part of, and that's the internet. The social internet side, the people. To me, what this situation between Tekton and Aaron showed, I'm not familiar with the Amir situation. I don't know. I'm not that familiar with the channel. I'm going to check him out just to see. But I have followed Aaron's reaction, the posts, all the other videos that people are making around this, including Tekton's 2 videos that seem to have been pulled down, I think. The situation is showing me that everyone, big business, small business, reviewers, spectators online, commenters, keyboard experts, keyboard warriors. The situation is showing me that I think we all need to remind ourselves what's important. And human values are far more important. More so than dollars. Heck, I can go out on a limb and say that enterprises that put human values at the top of their priorities will have a better chance of earning more dollars. Because in today's world, you might get away with some things for a little while, but if ever the internet mob catches wind of what you're doing and it's goes against good human values, if that spotlight goes on you, it's clear that it's really hard to get out of it. So I'm thinking respect, kindness, empathy, generosity, compassion. Those are the kinds of things I think that go a hell of a lot farther than bullying, threats, any toxic tactics that might have worked in the 80s and the 90s. In today's world, even if you think you have a lawyer behind you, I don't know. The damage that the internet mob can do, I think, can be irreparable by legal standards. I think we all need to be aware of this. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. But god damn it, guys, there's enough examples out in the world today of people reacting poorly to situations that don't need to be reacted to. And usually the people who come out with the threats are the ones who get knocked out of the park here. So anyways, guys, as an example, before I get into what I think about all the measurement stuff, I have a great relationship with Lisong distributors in Canada and in the United States. I know both groups. I talk to both groups. I think they're all phenomenal people. And through them, I've had some interactions with Lisong HQ in China. And an example of a great reaction from a manufacturer was when Lisong China sent me a pair of speakers, their AL4s, that try them out. Well, I couldn't recommend them when I got them. There was an issue that to me was a deal breaker for anybody going to spend money on a pair of speakers. I reached out to them and I said, hey, are you guys okay if I make a video considering this? This is my stance. Is this normal? Am I doing something wrong? Similar approach to what Aaron did with Tekton, with his measurements. How am I going to do? How should I do this? How should I not do this? And Lisong responded. Lisong HQ from China responded in the best way possible. They said they value my opinion and to go ahead and make that video and be as transparent as I can. And they would use this as an opportunity to understand what's wrong so that they can make their product better. To me, that response is magic. Made me respect them way more. Because they put human values first, my opinion. They said they value my opinion more than to simply hide the fact that this product was probably not ready. Personally, I think that Tekton had a huge opportunity here with Aaron's video. Huge opportunity. Aaron is one of the big up-and-comers in YouTube. He's already over 50,000 subscribers. And come on. He interprets and gives his opinion on the measurements that he takes. And he is very qualified to make these measurements. And he has the right gear to take these measurements. We'll get to that after. But instead of going the toxic route, had Tekton gone the human route, where they could have had live video calls, chats with Aaron to discuss how he did his test and what they would recommend to do next time he tries a test, show the variance between Tekton's own measurements versus what Aaron's measurements were, or heck, just to hash it out, just talk like a bunch of cool human beings that love to listen to music and are in this hi-fi world. Had Tekton done that, guaranteed today, they would be 3 steps ahead in terms of first their reputation and respect from the entire hi-fi online community. Guaranteed. It would have been a proper and human civil reaction instead of all of a sudden threatening litigation. Come on. Okay, maybe he had an order get canceled around the time of Aaron's video, but man, that's speculative. Short of because honestly, if a client calls you and said, I just saw a video on YouTube and it showed that the measurements on your speakers are not that great. I don't want my speakers anymore. Cancel my order. Me personally, I don't want a client like that. Absolutely not. Because I know that's a freaking Karen. That's a Karen that is going to come back and complain about every little goddamn detail that they know absolutely nothing about. And they won't even listen to the speaker. Because I'll be like, yeah, okay, it doesn't measure perfectly. Oh, none of the speakers do. Does it sound good? Oh, does it? Oh, you didn't hear it? You didn't listen to it? Get out of here. Anyways, to me, it was a huge, huge opportunity that was missed by Tekton. No one can predict the future now, so I don't know what's next. I don't know what's going to happen. No clue. Honestly, I don't care. Everything matters. The good as well as the bad. It's just like setting up a hi-fi rig. But there's a difference between only wanting good reviews and someone who's only looking for negative reviews. Like a manufacturer that is only interested in having positive reviews instead of being transparent and showing that their quality is being humble and wanting to make a good product instead of blindly pushing what they're doing and not caring about the results as long as the money comes in. And for those of us who are browsing the internet and YouTube, looking for negative channels and negative reviews and being upset that there's not any negative reviews, man, if you're chasing the negativity, why look for negative shit? So that you have an outlet to bitch? You want to listen to music or do you want to bitch? All hi-fi is good these days. All of it. So before you bitch even about chi-fi stuff, a lot of people bitch about the fact that that's made in China and it's crap and it's copied of this. Maybe, but the world is made of all of these things. You have to realize that not everyone is in the same situation as you. Some people would not be able to afford anything that comes close to hi-fi if it wasn't for the chi-fi stuff. And you'd all be surprised that a kid who can't afford anything but a chi-fi stuff, that is also studying to become an engineer, that chi-fi stuff might actually help and inspire this person to grow up and become the next hi-fi genius that makes super high quality products. We don't know. So everything's part of this organic world that lives and breathes, even though it's a bunch of ones and zeros in the back. So let's all stop freaking judging everything. It's okay to have good and okay to have bad. The two extremes allow us to stay grounded and have an idea of where the middle is. That's important. And I think it's important with everything. The worst anyone can do on any side is to overreact and go on the offensive as a first reaction. Talk to each other. And that's my philosophy, bitches. So measurements. The measurements don't give you the full picture. Well, the measurements don't give you the full picture of how it sounds, or they don't give you the full picture of what we hear. And if some of you have seen his recent video, that was a video that I completely agreed with OCD Mikey. So, parenthesis on OCD Mikey, by the way, like, I don't agree with a lot of things that Mikey says. His philosophy of things on life, I have some differences in what my philosophies are. But I'm gonna say this though, I respect the heck out of Mikey. I really do. Because to share his opinion that way online is not easy. No, it's not easy. It takes a heck of a lot of confidence. It takes balls. And I'm going to close this parenthesis in saying that of every hi-fi rig of all the YouTubers out there that I've seen, with what I know now, with my experience, the one rig that I really truly believe outclasses and probably outshines a heck of a lot of our systems is OCD Mikey's rig. That crazy laboratory mad scientist approach that he has. He's triamped, he's active crossovers, he's using beyond high quality amplification. He is positioning his speakers, which are often a trifecta, which often like I've seen tower just for a tweeter, like for a massive ribbon tweeter, seen a tower for highs, mids, and upper lows, and have separate tower for his lows or subwoofers, and they're all in very different places in his room that are maximizing the acoustic performance of those towers for his room. And he uses sources that are built like, oh my god. So anyways, closing the parenthesis, in my opinion, I'm sure beyond many doubts that in terms of my taste, OCD Mikey's rig is one of the rigs I would dream of listening to. And who knows, maybe one day I'll reach out to him and have enough money to fly out there, I'd love to get a crash course on his system. And maybe even debate with him with some of the different philosophies, but who cares? It's all a matter about being civil. And if you make a new contact and make a new buddy in the process, hell yeah. All right. You know, if measurements were so important, that would mean that we would know the recipe for good sound. We don't know the recipe for good sound. Nobody does. Because if we did, every device, every amplifier, every speaker, every DAC, everything would all be built exactly the same and it will all sound the same. It doesn't. Even engineers or designers that I have met, when they're creating something new, and I'm talking completely new, not taking someone else's design and then tweaking and adjusting and then trying to make it their own. You're making something new completely from scratch. There's a heck of a lot of trial and error that goes into this stuff. A lot. Because the sheer amount of variables to consider, first you got to figure out the signal path. How are you going to design it? The ground mesh, voltage, phase, impedance, delay, materials you're going to use, resonance in the cabinet, in the box, shielding, distortion, feedback, no feedback. And then you got to execute all this. Then you got to find the parts that'll work, that test well, that sound well. And doing all of this stuff without measurements, forget it. It's your point of reference. It's your guidelines. It's your map. It's knowing how things are reacting to each other. But people who measure things by simply doing a frequency sweep on axis, off axis, or doing ABX tests, and that's it. If we think that that's the entire picture, like from a physics perspective of how sound works, man, are we that cocky to think that we figured it all out? We haven't. So I think being open-minded is what's going to actually give us a shot at actually improving on what we know in terms of physics when it comes to sound. So I'm all for being open-minded. Heck, some of you have seen the pictures of my Ladybug baffles. They're ugly as shit, and they don't look like a normal speaker. But everyone who's heard them is flabbergasted by the sound stage and the quality of the sound. And man, I'm just piggybacking on some other engineering genius that's just feeding me these little cues that the audio gods are giving him in his sleep. Anyways, it's a lot of fun. So anyways, all that's to say that we don't know everything. There are still dimensions that our current formula is missing, or we haven't even explored yet. Actually, check out this video. Came out a little while ago. This guy actually is bringing such a great approach to starting to understand how to measure cables in hi-fi. Go watch it. Watch it with an open mind. It is fascinating. Very fascinating. He's not just measuring frequency sweeps. He's measuring more than that. And he's measuring things even that are at a spectrum of frequency that is way beyond human hearing capacity. But interestingly enough, some of the cables that are showing up in measurements at these insane frequencies, I'm not talking kilohertz, I'm talking megahertz. No way we can hear that. Strangely, his test audience is reacting to differences on those cables that are inaudible in terms of variations. Anyways, I'm not explaining it right. Go check that out. Go check out this one. It's cool. The other thing about measurements that I can't help wonder is how many things have to align and be on the same playing field, especially if you're comparing when you're measuring. I mean, the mic that's being used to measure, is the mic in 100% perfect working order? Is it calibrated properly? We'll take people's words for it. And I'm sure that someone who calibrates a microphone thinks that it's perfectly calibrated. But just like how you think you might actually perfectly measure a piece of wood before cutting it, if you ask 4 people to measure with the same tools, you'd be surprised when you actually take those 3 or 4 pieces of wood cut by those 3-4 different people with the same tools. There might be subtle differences. How do we know that the actual device that we're measuring is actually operating as it should? How do we know there's not a component in there that's, maybe there's Maybe there's a hint of a cold solder somewhere in the device in there, and that's affecting the end results. What if? Was the voltage that was coming in that day up to speed? That's right. Yes, some days electricity is not a 100% consistent thing on day-to-day basis. If there's a voltage dip one day, can it affect measurements from the day compared to the day before or the next day? If there's serious voltage fluctuation, maybe. Someone who guarantees and says no, it's impossible. Man, I'm speculative. I'm like, I mean, if someone says no, that's impossible, it'll never change and that'll never influence this, I'm like, well, when the voltage coming into my home dips down, I can tell you my gear sounds very different. And then, what's measured? It's not just about frequency sweeps. Then there's context to be applied to all this. And then when you have all these measurements, and it comes to sonic taste, how does the measurement translate to sonic taste? I don't know. However, that being said, I might have an in now to maybe be able to have a conversation with Aaron at some point, because I'd love to hear his perspective. I want him to hash this out for me. I'm curious. I want to learn more from people who really understand how measurements translate to what we hear. But I promise you, the more I'm going to deep dive into this hole, what I'm going to find out is I'm going to end up finding cracks or loopholes or things that are not as simple as a 1 or a 0 or a chart. Anyway, and what leads me to say that is the video I mentioned before about the person who's bringing a fresh approach in measuring hi-fi cables. On that, my rant is over, guys. I hope you all had a good weekend. It was Expona this weekend. I hope you all got to enjoy all those crazy, awesome runes. Shout out to all my friends who were there. Shout out to Armando, to Debbie, to James, Kelly, Benjamin. Yeah, guys, I hope you all had a blast. It looks like you did. Looking forward to talking to all you guys soon, and thanks for putting up with my lovely hat. This is not a review. This is my unqualified opinion. I never graduated from the School of Acoustic Geniuses or Engineering or even common sense. So what do I know? Well, I know what you know. Not much. But I'm lucky I get to play with hi-fi gear without buying it. So why watch my videos? Because it's entertaining and awesome. Duh.